Response video to a student's question. The question is about the show all function. As mentioned in the manual, it should never be used for microorganisms and pathologies. Here it clearly states, never use for microorganisms and pathologies. This information can be found on page 42 of the manual and refers exclusively to the advanced report. Lo que significa que no tiene sentido al realizar un informe incluir el listado completo de microorganismo, incluir el listado completo de todas las patologías. Para un informe no es lo recomendado. Si volvemos hacia atrás en el manual del fabricante, todo esto que está mostrando el manual se refiere al lo que dice ver reporte. Acá ustedes pueden ver que dice ver reporte. Let me give you an example. Here we have a head measurement. As you can see, it says view, report. And if we click here, it says advanced report. Then we find the advanced report option again. This is the section where it says scan all elements. If we click on scan all elements and print, we'll generate a comprehensive report, including many elements, which doesn't make sense. For example, I performed a test where I marked all the elements. Let me go back and you'll see submitting an enormous list with a complete catalog of all pathologies and all microorganisms makes no sense, it's not practical, and it serves no real purpose. Let me give you an example. Here we have the prostate measurement. The display option is enabled. Therefore, it shows the complete list of all pathologies that we can view by spectral similarity order, or we can also sort them alphabetically. Now watch what happens when I click on Show All. It's simply a filter. When you click Show All, it filters and displays pathologies exclusively related to gender and sexuality. Male-specific conditions. Look, prostate, 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 prostate. In other words, when filtering, when clicking Show All, it displays a filter showing all elements related to prostate conditions. But for proper analysis and an adequate treatment plan for regarding complementary therapies, it's important to consider the complete list of all pathologies, but it's equally crucial to always take into account the comprehensive list of all microorganisms. What I'm about to explain in this interesting article from a U.S. medical library discusses bioresonance, metastasis, and cancer, and then mentions a hypothesis based on primary cancers and secondary cancers. I recommend reading this research because it's crucial to understand why we must always analyze all diseases associated with an organ and examine all microorganisms linked to an organ, since the disease may start in one part of the body and spread to other areas. When a disease originates in one place and spreads to other locations, that is explained here with the terms colonization and migration. You can use the Ctrl+F keys to search for the word colonization. I'm doing it in my language now, and I'll show you what this concept means. Colonization means spreading to a secondary site, which in pathology refers to it begins in one place and progresses from one location to another. And in this interesting article, it discusses migration, colonization, proliferation from one place to another. I recommend looking at the definition of the hypothesis, which states that the hypothesis has two aspects, the primary cancer and metastasis, and it mentions that they share a common origin, meaning two tumors that arise from the same source. It mentions that primary cells and metastases exist in similar microenvironments and receive similar signals, meaning similar microenvironments and similar signals. What does this imply? That an organ, for example, take the prostate, it has its own microenvironment and signaling. If those same electromagnetic characteristics appear elsewhere in the body, then a second tumor appears in another part of the body in a different organ. This means a disease has an origin point and can progress, migrate, and spread, colonizing other areas that have similar microenvironments. These locations receive similar or identical signals. That's why when analyzing the prostate, if we only examine the pathologies associated with the prostate, we have a narrow, localized perspective, only looking at the organ itself as if the problem lies solely here, whether the organ is healthy or diseased. It's a limited view. But if we consider the hypothesis that explains the development of primary and secondary cancer, we need to examine everything to understand how the prostate might be affected. Affected by the vascular spectrum, by what extent could it be? Microenvironments and stimuli, electromagnetic characteristics. Electromagnéticas de la laringe pueden estar afectando la próstata. Es decir, each of these elements has electromagnetic properties that, if present here and prominent, establish a relationship from the perspective of looking at the MRI scan. If we want an organ to be balanced, we need to treat that organ and block it from continuing to emit signals like a radio or TV antenna transmits to other organs so that the prostate, for example, doesn't affect other parts of the body, and also ensure that other parts of the body don't affect the prostate. Everything. I explain this in greater detail in the Bioplasm Metatron Biophilia course. I have a class where I explain the bioresonance hypothesis that describes metastasis, and this hypothesis allows us to use it as a tool for creating a treatment plan. In the course, I explain how pathology and disease progress in the same way that, over time, the therapy can also progress. We can perform a bioresonance therapy on one organ and then repeat that therapy, that electromagnetic characteristic, starting with the prostate, then the kidney, then the pancreas, then the liver, and thus carry the resonance of balance from one organ to another. How can we achieve this? We can utilize the various functions of the software. The software offers multiple therapeutic possibilities, including metatherapy, lunar therapy, herbal therapy, plant therapy, lithotherapy, and we can use these therapeutic possibilities to create microenvironments, similar points in different parts of the body to help the person regain their energy balance. That's why it's important to consider all pathologies and all microorganisms that have a relationship with the organ, because the organ can be affected by other organs in other parts of the body, and this works both ways. The prostate can. It can affect another organ, and other organs can affect the prostate. That's why we need to take a holistic approach.